Do you know what year it is, Danny?
We're taking a trip back, Chris, to World War One. 1917. What's going on, everybody? Critic and the Common Man here, coming at you with another video. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the movie, I'm sure, at this point. Today we are talking about the incredible 1917. This movie's been out for a little while, but we just watched it on Amazon, and we have a lot to say about it. So, as always, you know, we've skipped them, I think, in the last couple videos, so shame on us, but this is your spoiler warning. With all these videos that you're doing, that we're doing, there's going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and then come back to us. Let's jump right into it, Chris.
Really
1917.
Quick, just to knock the first spoiler out of the way. The Allies win. So
there you go.
That
hopefully
happened.
We didn't ruin anything for you there.
Yeah,
hopefully we didn't. If you didn't know that one, definitely go watch the movie.
Historically
and
speaking, though, really
ones.
quick history side of our viewers, I don't think they were called the Allies at that time. I think the Allies was a World War II thing. So.
Oh yeah, what I don't know. I don't know a lot about World War One. Dude, let's get into this thing, man. 1917. What a movie. This was an intense, very powerful movie, very different. A lot to say about this one, but start us off, Chris. What'd you think about 1917? Get us rolling here.
Okay, so I watched it. I immediately after I was done started pulling up all of the awards and accolades and everything it got. I will say that it is deserving of every award it got. Mind-blowing film on just a film level. Just the cinematography and the achievement on that level was just absolutely fascinating and stunning that they were able to accomplish this. On another note, I also read a lot of really, really shitty reviews. I don't know. I've got a lot to say about that, but basically, I think I want to start off because I read a lot of reviews saying that this movie wasn't historically accurate and all that. This movie, I think it's important to note that if you're watching this movie, and I don't know if this will change your mind if you've already seen it or if you want to see it, I wouldn't consider this a war movie. I think this is an art piece that takes place in a war zone. But I don't think this is a movie about war because there really isn't much of an action sequence. This is not Saving Private Ryan with a big battle, here and another one here and another one here. It's more than that. It really is about this one guy trying to just finish the job for his friend. That's what it comes down to. And I wouldn't call this a war movie. It's about a soldier in World War I. But I just want to put that out there because a lot of people I read on that were like giving this movie 1 star. Which at that point, like I understand if you don't like the movie, but if you're giving this movie a 1 star, at that point you're just writing a review to be a shitty person. Like you just
there was nothing about this movie that would warrant getting less than at least 3 or 4 stars. There's no way this is a 1-star movie, and not at all.
And so if you were one of those people that wrote that 1-star review, please leave a comment down below because I will gladly fight you on that because it is not. Yeah. There's no way.
I unfortunately had heard a lot about this movie before I ever actually saw this movie. I didn't see this in theaters, and I wish that I had. That was a mistake. I did not see this in theaters. I decided to wait until it came out so we could stream it. But I did hear a couple things that I really wish I had been able to see the movie without hearing. For example, I heard that it was all basically one continuous shot.
See, I didn't know that.
So I knew that going into it, and I was actually very excited about that. But I would have been interested to see how I would have reacted to that had I not known. So I did already know that going in. In fact, I actually watched a little YouTube video kind of on a behind the scenes. Some of you guys probably saw it too, on exactly how they did that. And you can pick up on it. If you go back and watch the movie again, you can see there's certain transitions
where they go into like a tunnel or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the light will get so dim just for a second, and it's really quick, and you can tell that's their chance to reset. That's their chance to, okay, cut, and kind of reset and start. But it is stitched together with such precision and such fluidity. It is phenomenal.
There is one cut in the movie. One visible cut.
Where was it?
Right when he gets shot.
Ooh.
And it cuts to nighttime.
Damn. Yeah, that's true. That was you're right. When he like opened the door and like they exchange fire, you're right. He goes unconscious and it cuts out.
Because I was wondering about that because they mentioned that he had to get there before dawn, and that it would only take like 8 or 9 hours, they said, at most. And so I was like, well, are we about to watch 8 or 9 hours of them going across? I was like, there's no way. So I knew there had to be a time lapse or something where they cut to a later time. And I think that couldn't have been a more perfect like that was the halfway point. He made it over the bridge, and he was now in enemy territory, so they cut the movie right there. Like, I think that was...
So have we seen this before, that you can remember, where a movie was done all in one take?
Yes. Most recently, another Academy Award-winning movie. This one was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. It didn't win a bunch, but it did win some Golden Globes. It won Golden Globe for Best Picture, but it was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. Iñárritu, who is another director, he did Birdman with Michael Keaton.
Right.
And Birdman was another movie that was done in one continuous shot.
One take.
But it was done in the same way.
I guess one shot would be the...
It was stitched together to look like it was one shot. So they did the same thing. They would go through a tunnel or pass a wall or in front of a pillar or something, and it would go black for a moment, and they would cut there. On that note, though, that doesn't take away from the achievement that they did here, because this is still, 15, 20 minutes of a single shot. That's a lot of choreography and a lot of thought and prep work that has to go into that, especially when you have scenes with like the explosions and
there's a lot of
hundreds of extras.
Mm-hmm.
So many extras
a lot
that
of moving pieces.
But yeah, there are movies that have done that. There's a horror movie, I can't remember what it's called, that did that. Movies are definitely in the modern age looking at trying to do things differently now, because there's so many things that have been done, and I can't remember who said it, but there's a famous writer who said that any idea that you have, it's already been thought of. There's no original idea anymore. And so I think people are looking at unique ways of telling old stories.
So what did that do for you when you were watching this movie? The fact that it was basically looking like it was all in one shot. Like, what effect did that have on you as a viewer? Because it definitely changes the way you're watching this movie and kind of how you even think about it.
I think it does a service to the movie because it makes you feel like you're going along on the journey with them. Like, there's the scene where he's getting into the truck, and they're driving off, and I didn't even think about it, but the camera, they had to make room for the camera person to get in the truck too.
It's incredible how they pulled it off. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and so it really does make you feel like you are almost like this third soldier going along, through no man's land with them. And it is an achievement for cinematography. But I think not only does it do that, it also adds to the suspense, because, like I've said before, when you hold a shot for too long, it makes you as a viewer uneasy because you're not sure if you should be expecting something or not. And when you do that for the entire movie, you're basically not sure if there's going to be a soldier that pops out and kills the main character at the entire movie. You're not sure because you are constantly watching every corner, everything, because you're afraid for this guy. You don't want him to die because they've invested you into this character now, especially after he loses his friend. But yeah, I think it's a unique thing to do.
The setting of World War I and being in these trenches lent itself really well to that kind of cinematography, because what it did for me was it gave me a better idea of just how close that kind of combat and that life was. I mean, it's crazy in this movie how you go from, it starts out, he's like resting by a tree with his friend, Blake and Schofield are resting by a tree. And it's like, but you're with them literally as they walk through the trenches, where's the sergeant, or where's the general, that way, and they keep going. And before you know it, within 40 minutes of the movie, all of a sudden you're in no man's land, and then you're in the German bunker and the German trenches. I mean, they were right there. Yeah. And when you follow that, but what's also crazy is all of a sudden, just as fast as you go from like the English front line to the German front line, all of a sudden then you're in this beautiful open grass field. And it's like, damn, you get this idea in your head when you think of World War I, that they were in these just desolate areas where it was just miles and miles and miles of just mud and trenches and just bombarded, cratered or demolished earth with barbed wire everywhere. But this, to me, it was insane to see how they're at this tree. They wake up. They get put on this mission, and you follow them as they walk all the way through no man's land.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're in the German trench, and then before you know it, again, they're back on this beautiful grass field on the other side in France, I believe, is where this
Now,
was taking place.
Did that take you out of the movie, or did that enhance the world for you?
Absolutely enhanced it for me.
Because some of the reviews I was reading
me.
were saying that, like, oh, this movie's historically inaccurate, and did they know anything about World War I? And the way I see it, they were saying that there's too much beautiful land, and that, and the way I see it, one, nobody was there. Nobody alive today was there. So how would you possibly know what it looked like? And two, there is no way, at least in my mind, that you could absolutely destroy every single inch of the French landscape. There's no way. Nobody would live there. Nobody would be
There would
living
have to be
there.
grass. Right, there would have to be grass at some point.
Now, between the trenches, absolutely, there's going to be pocked with, craters and all of that. Because
from like mortar fire.
Exactly.
And all that.
The artillery was trying to stop the different advances. This line would push, they would bombard them. This line would push, they would bombard them. So of course there's going to be fire that way. There may be some scarring in the land between, and around the trenches and stuff, where they're digging new trenches and all that. But there's got to be areas where the land is untouched.
Yeah, they couldn't have just demolished all of France.
No, it would never grow back.
Right.
And so for me,
no way.
people to say that was something that took them out of it, like, I don't think so. Like, even World War II, where you have movies like Saving Private Ryan, is the first one that comes to mind, of course. There are moments where there's beauty in where they're walking.
Yeah.
Like you can,
and like the towns and the pastures and everything. Yeah.
Like it's a very large planet that we live on, and there's no way, no matter what the scale of this war was, that every single inch of land between Germany and France was completely scarred. So I agree with you. I think that it not only enhanced the world, but it created a dynamic, which I always say that. It created this dynamic between life and death. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more as we get into the notes and stuff. But you go from this quiet, serene nap, and you follow them as it pulls back. You see all of a sudden they're not alone. They're surrounded by hundreds of troops as you jump into the trenches with them. So you go from beautiful tree landscape to the trenches, from the trenches to no man's land, from no man's land into the German trenches, and then you're back, and it creates this moment of relief before it throws you back into the desolation again when the guy gets killed. And it's this constant up and down. Even when he's in the German lines, they did that still when he found that French girl. It gave you a reprieve. It gave you this dynamic moment of relaxation in their exchange. Even though they could barely talk to each other, they gave you a moment of remember that there is life, because she had a child and she was helping him patch himself up. And then what happens right after that? He gets thrown back into the line, back into enemy territory, and he's getting shot at. And that is what makes a good movie. You can't have that constant stress because it's not fun.
Yeah.
You can have a dark movie like this where there's blood and gore and destruction and desolation everywhere, and still have those moments of dynamic up and down in the emotional level. And this movie did that phenomenally. And on that same note, dude, the set design, these massive sets
is incredible.
Like, what did you like? I cannot imagine that this was filmed in a studio.
No. It would have to have been actually out there where they set these things up. And I think we'll have to link that YouTube video that I watched about how they filmed this, because I think a lot of that behind the scenes showed kind of where they were. But as far as bringing me into this based on like the detail and the setting and the scenery, oh man, it was stunning. It was a stunning movie visually. I mean, even from the small things working up, their outfits, their uniforms, they were great.
Leather,
everything
like
was covered in blood.
They were wearing, yeah.
Right, everything was covered in blood, and they were pulling things out. They were getting wet, and there was just they were talking about the food being shit, and just the bunkers were destroyed, and they're digging them and trying to remake them in its tight quarters. And then you go through this no man's land that was just horrifying.
Yeah,
you're looking at craters that are just massive.
Dude,
There's dead
I had
bodies
no idea
everywhere.
they were that big.
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, dude, you can imagine some of that artillery was huge.
Yeah.
Some of those shells they were firing out of those things were gigantic.
Yeah, that means that
and they
the
just
actual
explode.
round itself was like that big.
Right. They're bombs. They're just shooting bombs at each other. And they did a really good job to me of painting World War I in a very desolate light. I mean, it was, it was very dark and kind of bare in there when they were going through the no man's land. But then you get to this German bunker and you can see, I thought it was very cool how even you look at the English bunker and they're like not in the best shape and they're kind of run down and things are kind of patched up. And then you get to the German side and they've got these huge like barracks with bunk beds and everything's like really clean and neat. And it's almost like this German engineered bunker that's just superior. And it kind of sets the tone of who they're fighting, because really, you don't really see a lot of the enemy in this movie. You don't really see German soldiers all that much. You see the pilot, who of course kills Blake, but you don't really interact with a lot of German soldiers in this movie. So the danger... Yeah, a couple drunk ones, but the danger in this was completely laid out by the setting. It was completely laid out by the scenery and how they set bombs and how... just kind of the tone set it up that we were supposed to be intimidated by these people, but they did a really good job, I think, with the set and everything in this. And it definitely, I was pretty enthralled. I was pretty into this.
What do you think? I was thinking about whether or not we should jump into it, but what did you think about the death scene of Blake? Like, did it seem a little too fortuitous that, they're watching this dogfight and then the plane just happens to go down? Or would you call that fate?
Well, and of course, it's a movie, so I'm willing to kind of buy that a little bit. The idea that the plane would happen to crash right where they were at, I don't know. I mean, maybe there could be something where the German soldier wanted to crash, the German pilot wanted to crash by structure, so that maybe he thought he could take cover in that little cottage if he crashed. There could be something there.
Or near to the German lines.
Right, near the German line, there could be some sort of strategic mindset to that. So I'll put that aside as far as just being too forced, because of course, the fact that the plane lands right where they're at, and then they happen to, the pilot doesn't die, and they pull him out. Yeah, that was a little bit almost too good to be true kind of thing, or not too good, but a little bit too fortuitous. But as far as his actual death, I was a little bit disappointed by it. That was kind of one of the things, and I even have that in my notes. That was one of the things in the movie that I actually was a little bit disappointed by, because I thought it was a little too soon to kill him off. I liked Blake's character, and I liked their dynamic as friends. Like when the bomb went off in the German bunker and Schofield was laying there, I thought that he was dead.
Yeah, I did too.
And I was thinking, damn, that was really fast. Like, I thought this movie was about the two of these guys, and it's very much going to turn into it just being about Blake. Little did I know, in about 20 minutes, Blake was going to be stabbed, and the whole thing is about Schofield.
Yeah.
So I don't mind him dying. I wish he could have stayed alive a little longer and maybe died in the city that they were going to.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe died there. And again, the fact that they would pull this German pilot out and not think like he might have a gun or not think he might have a knife, like that to me seemed a little bit compared to the rest of the story. I was a little underwhelmed.
Here's
with that.
The thing about that, because I actually bought that, because a lot of people said how would you expect to pull the enemy out, and like people were bashing on that, and they were saying like, why didn't you shoot him? Like, it's not realistic. If this was a real war movie, they would have shot him. Here's the thing: on Christmas Day, I think it was Christmas Eve, I want to say it was 1916, but I don't remember. There was a ceasefire because it was Christmas, and the two trenches, the two lines of actually met in the center, and they got drunk together, and they stopped fighting for 24 hours. They just got together, they drank, they sang songs, they exchanged clothing, they exchanged things. They were comrades. They were just brothers in arms on this battlefield that they happened to be on two opposite sides. And this actually happened. There's footage of this happening where they're wearing each other's helmets and they're all laughing and smiling. And I think that we have seen a lot of war movies where there's a lot of dehumanizing of, one side versus the other. And we forget that as soldiers, you don't care after a certain point, because no matter what you go through, and not that I know from experience or anything, but no matter what you go through, you have to know that this was a human being at some point.
Yeah, they're people. At the
Exactly.
root of it, we're dealing with people. And dude, nobody, especially these young guys, like you look at even some of the real photos from World War I and II, you look at some of the younger soldiers, dude, they were kids.
Yeah.
They were just little kids, man. They didn't know. And you look at these people, and I mean, look at the conditions that they're living and fighting in. It's squalor. It's horrible. You're scared for your life constantly. You're stressed constantly. People, the anxiety must have been horrendous.
Yeah.
People are getting PTSD. You're living in a bunker in the mud in the freezing cold, or, at a certain point, people would probably not want to be there anymore. They wouldn't want to fight anymore. There's got to be a lot of those soldiers who in history probably at a certain point just said, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Why are we fucking killing each other in the millions? For what? You know what I mean? For what? Just these differences in ideals. So I agree with you. The fact that they pulled him out and didn't necessarily want to kill him, and he says even go get him some water.
Yeah.
He's trying to help this guy. It was very human,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say you're right. I will take that back. That was very human. That was very real, and I can appreciate
Now,
that.
and we still get the other side of it, where that German soldier didn't know what they were doing. He defended himself.
Yep.
He was in a dogfight. His adrenaline is still going. He got shot down. His body is in fight or flight mode because he's on fire. He did the one
Right.
thing that he could do, which was defend himself, because he had no idea what these two Englishmen were saying. Which, as a note,
I will say though, if they were gonna kill him like that, I'm glad that at least once Schofield saw that German pilot stabbing Blake, I liked that he killed him. And I'll tell you, because in what is it, Saving Private Ryan, where one of the guys is like really scared, he doesn't want to kill anybody, and he
yeah.
ends up getting a bunch of his soldiers killed. That bothers me.
It does,
and I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I get it that you don't want to be there, you don't want to fight, but like, you're not going to stop this from happening. Like it just, I was okay with at least the fact that once Blake was killed, Schofield didn't really
Yeah,
ask any
he was
questions.
just like, well,
he was like, no.
yeah,
Yeah,
his
he was a
training kicked
soldier.
in.
He was a little more of a soldier than Blake was.
Yeah. And I think Blake was younger. He even mentioned it when they were about to go over the trench. Schofield said age before beauty. And he went over
Oh,
first.
you're right.
So he
You're
was
right. Good
obviously
point.
older, and you could tell just from the acting, the choice of actors. The one who played Blake looked like an 18-year-old, whereas Schofield looked like he was in his 20s. Like there was definitely an
That's
age
true.
difference. Blake looked like a baby, man. Like he was, chubby, and he still had
Just a kid.
Yeah,
dude.
dude.
He was just a kid.
Now, so there's that. Before Blake dies, and this is some symbolism that plays a huge part in the film going forward too, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. They find some cherry blossom trees.
Yeah.
And he mentions, how his mom has an orchard, and he sees, that the trees have been chopped down or whatever. And Schofield mentions, he basically says, like, are these trees dead? Are they gone? And he said, no. There's going to be more of them. Like once the stone rots, there will be more trees than there were before.
Right, you'll end up with more than you bought.
Yeah. And so he mentions that about the trees, and you see the cherry blossoms a couple times throughout the movie. And I think there's some real symbolism there that I just have to point out, because it's beautiful that not only is the one character, well, not the one character, but this main character that dies, the connecting thing between the cherry blossom and our protagonist Schofield, but there's also, he's connecting the life versus death theme that I mentioned earlier, where you have the destruction, but you're also seeing moments of real human emotion. And you're to the point where, like, Schofield is in the water and he's floating down the river, and he sees these corpses at the same time that he's seeing all these cherry blossom petals around him. And so it's a beautiful reminder that even though they're in this destructive hell, basically, that there is life that will come back afterwards, after it's all done. Once the stone rots, there will be more. And I think that, to me, I think that was such a beautiful theme and a beautiful motif that kept recurring through the movie. And you see that a lot in this movie. You see a lot of different things that kind of popped up a few different times. But I mean, like, there's so much I could say about this movie.
Well, I think that was well said, what you said earlier, that I agree with you. I don't know that I would call this a war movie. I mean, war movie in the sense that it's like set in a war. So sure, and I understand why it would like technically be called a war movie. but it's not really like an action
No.
movie in the sense that like this isn't them like fighting and clearing the beach and working their way through like trenches and stuff. This is very much more. This has a lot more depth than
It's
that.
more. It's
in,
more.
in the
It's
symbolism.
a human story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And even, all the way through when he's going and he finds the troop of soldiers and one of them singing, and he kind of takes the moment to kind of just sit down and listen to the song that's going on as he's like working his way basically to deliver this message. I think there's a lot of symbolism in that as far as just, what like trying to find some peace like while you're surrounded by this destruction
And he is
and
exhausted.
death. And,
He has a concussion,
he is.
of course he does. Like, there's no way he didn't.
Right. Yeah, he's completely worn
Yeah.
out. This movie I thought was also pretty interesting in that he's not like a spy or anything. Like Schofield and Blake are literally just two men, but
They're
the
runners,
fate
yeah.
of thousands of men are basically resting on their ability to just like they didn't send some elite force. It was just you had to send what you could, and he knew that since Blake's brother was part of that battalion, he'd be more motivated to do this. So they just get sent as basically these average guys who are being told, "Hey, you have to risk your life entirely because if you don't, all these other men are going to die."
They're messengers.
Right. They're basically just the messengers. But obviously, the biggest not draw, but the biggest kind of news about this movie was that the way it was shot, the fact that it's all kind of one continuous shot. That was very impressive. I thought none more so, no scenes more so impressive than towards the end when he finally makes it to the other battalion and he jumps in front of the bunker and not even all that fast is kind of working his way down to try and find Mackenzie. That visually was one of the most incredible scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And just bone chilling. Like it was unbelievable. Like it was beautiful in a macabre way to just see all of those extras running and, explosions everywhere. Now, fun fact, did you know that he wasn't supposed to fall?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He actually ran into that guy?
Like 3 or 4 different people. Yeah, they kept it in because it added to the realism, but that wasn't supposed to happen.
Damn.
There were just so many extras that he kept running into them.
Like you said, when you're trying to do it in one continuous shot, the amount of moving pieces that are going on must have been insane. And I don't know what those things are called that you put your camera on to like keep it stabilized. But dude,
a steady cam.
They must have had one of those made by like fucking NASA because dude, they were like the shot was so still and like while they were moving throughout that whole thing, I have no idea how
it's cool because they make rigs now where you strap the camera basically to your chest. So you put on a vest.
Right.
And then there's like an accordion arm that comes out and you stick the camera on that and you can maneuver that. And so you're using your own body weight, like physically your own like torso to hold the camera. So it's a lot of like back. But on top of that, I mean, it's still heavy, but on top of that, there's also this bar that comes out of the top of your back and a string that attaches to the camera that kind of keeps it stable. And so you add that on top of like potentially being in a cart, or having multiple camera operators to help you. And then you have post-production, stabilization. Like, dude, I've taken videos that were completely wobbly. You add a stabilizing effect to it and the entire video just zooms in a little bit and it fixes all the stabilization and it's smooth as butter. So it's
incredible.
Yeah. And I think that's something that would not have been possible, at least not on this level 20 years ago.
No way. No way.
Yeah, the invention of 4K definitely helped. But I want to talk about that scene where he finds the woman, the French woman in there, and he just happens to have that milk.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying like how fortuitous and how, I mean, it gave me the chills, honestly. Like I looked at Miranda, I was like, oh my God, he's got milk. When she was like, no, she needs milk. And I was like, oh, he has milk. Like it didn't take me out of it. If anything, it kind of made it feel like this soldier was meant to do this.
Yeah, it was kind of his fate,
Yeah.
this message, this kind of quest that he was on. It was his fate to deliver this message. That didn't take me out of it at all. I mean, I would imagine if I was a soldier in war and you're constantly having your canteen filled with probably dirty water, and that's all you're getting to drink, maybe aside from a tiny bit of alcohol for like very special occasions. Dude, if you found fresh cow's milk, I would absolutely fill my canteen up with it. Like you could always pour
I
it
would
out
chug
and
it
just
and
fill
then
it back
fill
up
it
with
up.
the water.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what he did. I mean, I didn't think it was far-fetched to assume he would fill his canteen up with the milk. Now, what I did think was actually a little more far-fetched was the fact that all that destruction and how the Germans would cut the trees down and kill everything on their way out, but they left that cow alive. To me, that seemed a little unrealistic. I wouldn't imagine the Germans would leave a dairy cow for the British to come and get. You know what I mean? That seems like a hot commodity.
Now, I think that with that, it kind of shows that there was somebody working the farm. Like, they had just left within a couple hours. Like, when they tipped over that thing of ashes, there was still embers in there that lit up the moment they hit oxygen. Like, they were there
that's true.
2 to 4 hours before. So, like, they were on the heels of these German troops of the line that was retreating. Well, not really retreating. But, and so I think the way they kind of set up the set was that somebody was working their farm that morning and was forced out or killed. And maybe one of these cows was out grazing in the pasture and happened to not be seen as the troops pushed onward. And, you know, like, I mean, yeah, it does seem a little far-fetched to me too, but if that's the biggest issue I have with the movie, then you know what? Fuck it, you know? Like, it really doesn't...
I think that was kind of one of the things where, because it was all done in one shot, they sort of... They didn't really have a choice but to kind of go that way. Like, for example, when Blake dies, and, you know, they're in an open field, man. Like, if there were British soldiers around...
Oh, yeah, and all the troops just show up?
As close as they... Yeah, like, the troops just show up once he dies. Like, they would have known they were there. Mm-hmm. They're in this big open field. They would have heard them or seen them. The, like, army trucks and stuff back then were not quiet.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not quiet now. They wouldn't have been quiet then. So I think because they were limited to saying, all right, we're not going to cut over to these guys and, like, show them coming in.
I see what you're saying.
And, like, it kind of it forced the scenes to be a little bit, like you're saying, fortuitous.
And a little fluid,
it kind of forced that.
Like, they kind of...
They had to.
They
like,
had
they
to,
couldn't...
absolutely, yeah.
They couldn't, like for example, if this had been like a Quentin Tarantino movie, it would have those British guys who ended up finding them once Blake died, they would have been their own story. Mm-hmm. Like, they would have been their own little band of mischievous, you know, soldiers, and then they would have come together somehow. But they couldn't really do that because they couldn't like cut over and show them separately.
And the thing is like,
so there was a little.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's a little bit of that forced. Jinx, boop, and we just are quiet for the rest of this podcast. There's a forced fortuity where you kind of, people just show up because, fortuity. People just kind of show up, or things just kind of show up because it all has to stay within that same shot. Yeah. So once you kind of accept that, it's fine. You just kind of go with it. I mean, they could have shown that other British troop coming in and, oh, that plane just crashed. Let's go over there.
And I think that's
and they
kind
could
of
have shown
they're
that.
hinting at.
Exactly.
You know, like
exactly.
you see a plane go down, and now pilots back then were badasses. Like, I don't know if you've ever saw Flyboys with
no,
James
I haven't.
Franco.
Well, that's when, like, the Red Baron and stuff, wasn't that all World War I?
That was World War I, yeah. Dude, pilots, I think their life expectancy was 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
Because,
I could imagine in those friggin' death traps. Like, dude, not even in combat, those planes probably crashed half the time.
They had literally
you know what I mean?
just discovered within the last 40 or 50 years how to fly planes. So, like, these,
dude, that's so scary.
And so the first thing they did was, like, let's strap some machine guns to them. Like, it took guts to become a pilot, and to get shot down. Like, you were considered, you know, like, these were people that were getting medals.
Right.
And so when you see somebody get shot down, like, that is somebody that potentially could get into another airplane. Rather than retraining somebody, you could get into another airplane, go back out, and shoot down more troops. And so it makes sense to me that you're so close to the line, just a few hundred yards back, they were there. They were, you know, in their own trenches. And so it makes sense that maybe this side, you know, because the trenches went on for miles. And so, you know, maybe they come up this way, but over here, there's a part of the line that's moving forward, and they see the plane go down, and so they divert a couple troops, and it just happens to, you know, meet with where they were right there on that farm. It's not too out of the way for me to say, like, you know what, okay, did it...
No, it's certainly none of the, like, fortuity throughout the movie, none of that ruined the movie in any way. This movie was phenomenal. I just think it was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't
the plane crashing there.
that you kind of... Right. There was a little bit
and
of
I think
that
that's
forced convenience a little
that's
bit.
where I go back to the first thing I said. It's an art piece. The whole movie is an art piece.
Yeah.
It's the single choice of making a single shot movie is an artistic choice. Having the cherry blossoms,
got
that's all. It's all art.
Yeah.
You know.
It got almost a little bit too artistic for me when he like woke up from being shot or being hit by that bullet, and like the lighting was going crazy and he's running through like the ruins and stuff like that. Or was that before he got shot? I think that was after.
He got
it?
shot when he was going up like he had just got out of the truck, crossed the river, and then went into the
Right.
building, tried to clear it, and then they shot each other. I don't think he actually got hit.
No, it like ricocheted off his helmet, I
Yeah.
think. Like I think it knocked him out. Like it hit him in the head, but his helmet stopped it, and
Well,
he just like
if you
kind of got
look,
knocked
there's
back.
when she's helping him, there's like a straight red mark across his neck, and so I think the bullet it
so
just
grazed his
grazed him,
neck.
but he fell back and he hit his head against the steps, and so I think he gave
Right,
himself
so
a
that's what knocked
concussion.
him out.
Yeah, and that's why he didn't wake up.
Fair enough. Plus, he had just lived through like an explosion going off 5 feet away from him, like at 2 hours
Yeah.
earlier. You know.
Now, I actually really liked how crazy when he wakes up and he looks out the window and the camera just kind of zooms in and you see the flares. Dude,
Yeah.
when those shadows were so ominous, the entire set looked like a graveyard. Like it looked like tombstones and not buildings, and I loved it.
That's where, yeah, when that was happening, I was kind of like, I don't know. I was like a little confused almost. I was like, oh my God, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because like I didn't know if it was supposed to be this weird play on time, like these shadows,
I could
like
see that.
like sun setting and rising really fast. I was like, wait, what's happening here? And then I kind of realized like, okay, these are supposed to be like flares going up. And that's like he's like running through the shadows, but visually that was incredible too. I mean, there's a few like the big landmark scenes for me would be when they're passing through like the no man's land. That visually was very intense. When he's running through that city like that and the flares are going up, that was insane. And then when he's running in front of the bunker to deliver the message to Mackenzie, those were like the 3 points in that movie that visually like blew me away. It was very, very deep.
Now, did the movie feel too much like Saving Private Ryan to you, or do you think there was enough of a story difference to say that it was its own unique film?
No, I think it definitely was unique, and it's because I didn't really know why, but it's because of what you said. It's not really a war movie in the sense that you're used to seeing war movies, and I'm glad you said that because I never would have really thought of that. Because you think it's a war movie because it's set during a war, and I guess technically I'm sure war movie would be the correct classification. Right. But you're right. It's very much more an art piece, and it's very much more kind of this story of these messengers, but it lacks. It's much more artistic. And I think it's much more deep than like a Saving Private Ryan, which is very much more an action movie where they're trying to deliver this message. So no, it didn't feel like a Saving Private Ryan to me. And I understand, like, obviously the plot, there are similarities. They're trying to deliver a message, and it's like kind of making them go all over the place. So I do see the similarities there. But the fact that it was World War I, the setting difference, the fact that it was only one guy for the most part, Schofield, going through this whole thing, no, it didn't feel too Saving Private Ryan to me. I thought they were very distinct. What about you?
I agree. And the first few minutes, I thought it was going to be too much like it was. It was basically the same premise. You know, you got to save a family member, and you got to get over to them, and it's just you and your squad. Which in this movie, it's just the two of them. But very quickly, it set itself apart as a unique movie. You know, and the only similarity they had was that plot device, and that's it. Other than that, I thought the movie completely set itself apart, if not above Saving Private Ryan. I think like it's so difficult to be better than Saving Private Ryan because it's an iconic movie.
You'll like them for different reasons.
Exactly.
Like, I would watch Saving Private Ryan for a much different reason than I would watch this movie.
Absolutely.
Like, to me, Saving Private Ryan is a very good, like, action-packed war movie. Like, if I want to kind of be like Saving Private Ryan blows you away just because of the goriness
realism.
and the visceral, realism to it, and just how it's like, holy shit, like this is really intense. Like, it's very intense.
Yeah.
Whereas I didn't feel like this one was so intense, but I thought it was much more there was much more depth to it.
Yeah.
There was more symbolism. There was more character development. I would watch and I like these movies for very different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, overall the movie was just absolutely incredible, and a very easily is going to be a classic.
Absolutely, and deserves all the recognition that it
Mhm.
did get for the creativity and how this one was filmed
Yeah.
and how this one was shot.
Now, did you know that the entire movie is based? So Sam Mendes, the director,
Mm-hmm.
he his grandfather fought in World War One, or great grandfather. I think it was his great grandfather.
Probably great grandfather. Yeah.
But he fought in World War One, and he was actually a runner, just like these two. And so I guess all of the stories that his grandfather told Sam Mendes were the inspiration for this movie. So it's not based on a true story, but Sam Mendes took pieces of the stories that his great grandfather told him and created a script out of that.
That makes sense. I was actually going to ask you if you would look that up. I should have, and I forgot to, if that was based on like a true story, because I really didn't know.
Yeah, I had to know. I was curious.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's talk about not to wrap this up, but necessarily, but I actually do want to talk about this just because I'm interested to see kind of what you think. Like this movie was very different in the way it was shot and the way it was kind of delivered to people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, and we can go into the scores that this got, but do you think that a movie like this is almost a little bit too deep for kind of just the general audience? Or do you think that generally people would like this? Because let me just tell you, just for the sake of this question, this movie got an 89%?
Yeah.
I can't even read my own handwriting. 89% critic score and an 88% audience score. So those are two very high scores. So
Yes.
clearly people liked this movie. Do you think that we'll see more movies like this in the future where they're more so like kind of artistic, more deep? Or do you think that we'll still fall back into this kind of generic action war movie?
I think to say that this movie is new in its topics, I don't think is correct. It's definitely one of a handful of movies that takes the topic of war and turns it into an artistic representation. But there's other movies that have done so, all the way back to like black and white movies.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Now, could I name every single one? No. But there's definitely two sides. There's the romanticized and artisticized version of the war movies, and then there's the action, the realism, where you've got like Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan and all that. Now, there's a movie called Miracle at St. Anna. I don't know if you ever saw that. That's a World War II movie. Deeply religious undertones. It's worth. I haven't seen it since I started like my film journey, so I'm not going to say that it's a great movie, but I remember watching it and then stopping the movie like when it was done, and I just had to process. I didn't know what to think. It's just one of those movies where I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. If you ever feel like watching a movie that's similar to this in that same sense, that it's got one of those like I'm not sure what just happened kind of a feel, but it's set in a war, Miracle at St. Anna is about an entire platoon of people that go through some shit in a town in Italy. But this movie, I think, definitely set a bar as far as what future war movies are going to have to be like in order to say. I mean, it's like Saving Private Ryan, man. Like, for good or for bad, for good or for worse, from 1996 or 97 when that movie came out, I can't remember, till now, people compare every war movie to that one. It's not as good as Saving Private Ryan. You know, like that's every movie that has come out. They try to meet that bar, that standard. And I think this movie has set another bar. It's basically, it's going to be like, was it as good as 1917 or Saving Private Ryan? That's going to be the future thing. Because I saw Dunkirk, which is a World War II movie.
Right.
It won a bunch of awards. I didn't personally like it. I didn't think it was that great. Wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like 1917.
Yeah.
And those two movies are very compared because they came out within like a year of each other. And they're similar because they're not war movies. Now, Dunkirk is about an evacuation. So it's just...
Right, I remember that story where they're like trying to get off the beach.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. And it's just thousands of troops just stuck on the beach while the front line is holding the retreat. That's what it's about, and it's crazy. It's good, but there was something lacking there that I think 1917 found. Yeah. As far as like to answer your question, I don't think that. I absolutely think that there's going to be movies that come out that try and add a little bit of that artisticness and that romanticism to the war. But then you're also going to have probably future directors who are going to be vets who are going to come out and create movies that are a lot more visceral in the same sense as Saving Private Ryan was, because they experienced that stuff firsthand.
Right.
And then I think that's the big difference, is that Saving Private Ryan or movies like it are a first-hand account, whereas movies like this one are an idealized third-hand account, where, it's somebody taking the information, even if it's a primary source like his great-grandfather, and turning it into a dramatization and a romanticized script.
Yeah, I was a little bummed that I didn't see this one in theaters.
Me too.
Because this one to me seems like one that was kind of meant to be seen on the big screen. And it stinks because it's like, what do you do? When you miss a movie in the theater, you like have to hope it comes back in theaters one day. It's not like you can just go watch it again. Just visually, this one seemed like it was meant for the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there was a little bit of something lost that didn't quite transition onto the TV, but I still think the scenery and everything was still very good. I just think that if you had seen this kind of with the full audio and everything, I think it would have really done justice to why this was nominated for so many awards.
I have like $20, and if you and I chip in like $20 each, I'm pretty sure we can rent a theater.
Dude, nowadays you probably could. AMC would probably give you a theater for $20. They just need some business.
Oh, you're giving us 40? Absolutely.
Right.
Right this way, sir.
What do you want to watch? Yeah, cool. All right, man. What else you got for this one?
So, I mean, I have a bunch of like nerdy facts. Other than that, I mean, I was blown away by this movie. I really, really was. I was not expecting it. When I go into a war movie, I really expect a next level kind of film, and it usually always falls short. And this movie delivered. I mean, some of the shots were unbelievable. Another great use of the mise en scène, of all the shit that you see, dude. Like where you're passing in front of like blurred dead bodies, and you barely even notice that they're there, or you're moving through the no man's land with them, and you don't see a body, you just see this part of their face just sticking out of the mud, and it's yeah, it is, dude. Absolutely, it's terrifying to see, like a decomposing horse. Like they really, really. And it's not, I mean, obviously it's gory, but it's not overtly gory. It's not being gory just to like, wow us or whatever. Like they were just creating the scene.
And they were creating they were setting
shots.
The tone for that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And they moved
definitely
masterfully through this, like putting the barbed wire in the front as they're moving through and up out of the crater and stuff. Like it just master cinematography. Like I have no other word for it other than that this movie is honestly a masterpiece. Which I guess we should just come down to like the scoring.
Yeah. So I'll go first, since obviously this one is a little more your speed. This is a Critics movie, I think, for sure. I think a lot of people will like this. This one was very, very good. It was very different to me in the way that it was shot, because I haven't seen a lot of movies like this recently. You make a good point with Birdman, but I was in this and I found myself really enthralled in this because of that masterful cinematography, because of everything they set up to make sure that I would be so intrigued with what was going on and have it feel so real, and it did. So major props to this film for what it was able to accomplish. I really enjoyed this one. You're right. As a war movie, it didn't have that Saving Private Ryan feel, because there wasn't so much action. It was very much more, it was dialogue heavy, which is normally not really my cup of tea. That's not really my speed. I'm a little bit more, I'm just kind of the standard audience member when it comes to a lot of those things. I enjoy seeing the big action sequences and stuff, but this movie was very deep in its story, and the plot that they had to kind of go through enemy lines and deliver this was very intense. I really did enjoy that. Phenomenal movie. Definitely deserves all the awards it was nominated for, deserves all the praise that it got. I know a lot of people have been seeing this because of all the talk it's generated. Again, 89% critic score, 88% audience score. I think I'm somewhere right around there. I really, really liked this one a lot. I mean, do we rate this as a war movie, or do we rate it as, it's kind of hard because if I'm rating this against like a Saving Private Ryan, it depends on what I'm looking for. You know, we always try to rate these movies in their own genre. So I guess as a war movie and kind of an art piece, we would rate it there. I really liked this movie a lot. I think, man, I think for what it was, to me, it gets, I'm like stuck between an 8.5 and a 9. I really did like it. Gosh, it was good. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. And I will say that I am definitely considering leaning towards the 9 on this one. I really, really liked it. It could be a 9 out of 10 movie for me. Man, that's hard. It's like when I'm going with my gut, I want to say 8.5. But like I'm kind of torn. I'll say 8.5. I'll go with my gut here and say 8.5. But a very good 8.5 movie and a really, really strong film. I liked this one a lot. I will probably watch it again at some point, and I'm glad I did watch it. What did you think, Chris?
I mean, the thing that stands out the most, obviously, is the cinematography, and I got awards galore for that. So, phenomenal, mind-blowing cinematography. The acting was incredible. The set design, the score was present pretty much the entire movie, the music, but you weren't aware of it. It just helped enhance the emotions that it was asking you to feel, and it did a fantastic job of that. The rising and falling of the emotional dynamics was incredible. The set design, like I said, was beautiful, and they did a great job of moving you through basically 24 hours in the span of 2 hours.
Yep.
And I mean, just great job to everybody, every single actor, and this movie absolutely deserves all of its awards, and I give it a strong 9 because
Nice.
I can't think of I thought about it for like an hour afterwards, and I can't think of any flaw that stands out to me as like this movie. Like it didn't stand out to me as like this made the movie worse. There's obviously flaws. There's going to be things out of any movie that stand out, but nothing that made the movie unwatchable or less watchable. I give it a strong 9 out of 10. It's easily going to be a classic, and if not already, and probably is going to end up being Sam Mendes' best work.
Yeah, agreed. So that's it. That's the Critic and the Common Man review of 1917. This one, you guys all saw it, I'm sure. It definitely deserves the hype that it got. Really, really cool movie, and just visually, just a stunning movie. It will blow you away. But that's it. So, strong scores here too. 9 from the Critic, 8.5 from the Common Man. So we'll put those up on our rankings on the website. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you, of course, as always, disagree with us or agree with us and you want to let us know why, drop a comment down below. If you're just listening to this episode, hop on over to the YouTube, get engaged with us a little bit. We'd love to know what you guys thought about this movie. If you think we're wrong, tell us. We'll respond to you in the comments.
But we're not.
Thank you guys. Yeah, right. But we're not. Thank you guys for the love on Instagram, as always, and all the social media. But that's it. Keep an eye out. We'll be coming at you with some new videos here soon. And that's us. So Critic and the Common Man review of 1917. We're out of here.